Welcome back. You're listening to another episode of the What is Humans podcast with Shane Strunk and Dennis Kluba. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at What is Humans podcast, on TikTok at What is Humans podcast, and on YouTube at What is Humans podcast. Today, Shane and I are discussing worry less. Enjoy.
Hey, welcome. You're on the What is Humans podcast. If you're new to the show, this podcast is conversations and personal development where Dennis Kluba and myself, Shane Strunk, discuss meaningful topics about everyday life. The real point of this podcast is we are experts in almost nothing.
Yeah.
What's up, man?
Nothing much. Getting excited, getting ready. It's springtime, and you're actually about, 4 or 5 days out from marathon?
Yeah. Yep. Salt Lake City Marathon. So it's something I've been working hard towards. So, really all the work's done. It's just executing now, and whatever comes.
Exactly. And I think that's a perfect segue into the topic today, which is worry less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does this topic mean? Are we just going to go tell people to stop worrying about everything?
Yeah. I wish that was the case, but I think that it's much more specific than that. So we have both gone through, a lot of growth over the past couple years, and something that I kind of noticed within my own life, and I think you feel a little bit of the same way, is that when you have these big changes or big growth moments, a lot of these decisions, and we just talked about decision making last week, is that they can feel everything can feel giant. Like it's going to dictate the rest of our lives, or this is going to be a monumental step in our career or our relationships or our hobbies and our passions. And a lot of times that can lead to overthinking or paralysis, which allows us to not even be our best self day to day.
Yeah. I've just seen it, examples when you brought this to me of, when I do care so deeply about something, if it's sport, it's a relationship, it's work or play, I just get too invested, and I am not able to perform or be myself in those things because I care too much about it.
Yeah.
And the times that I'm performing my best, or I've been at my best in whatever setting, has been situations where I'm not thinking at all.
Yeah.
Where I'm not in my head. I'm just doing, there's no expectations. I'm just out there playing.
Yeah. And do you feel like that, you talked about you're not worrying, you're not in your head, about the next step or how you're acting or anything like that. Do you feel like that comes from confidence in other aspects of your life, or, your confidence in your job, or your security with yourself? Or do you feel like that comes from, like we said, this idea of you're just not worried, you're worry free?
Yeah, I really don't think it was that first point of if everything else is going well, that means I can be well in this area.
Yeah.
I think it's more of just a kind of a mental well-being.
Yeah.
I wish we could describe that and diagnose it prescribe it, that it's something prescribable. I think it's more of I've taken care of myself. I'm doing things that challenge me, that push me, but I'm also celebrating, small wins along the way.
Yeah.
And I'm not being too hard on myself when things don't go well.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a mindset, on how you're approaching each day.
Yeah.
And I think it's conversations like these, I think, help at least me be able to worry less or find that state of flow or confidence, we've called it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I think that we were giving examples kind of when we were talking off camera before this about, sports, which was a really easy, kind of thing for us to tap into. And what I felt like it was when I was, at my best. You said worry free, or not worrying about making a mistake or what was coming. The next play or even the next game was. I was so confident in the work that I had put into that point, and I was so secure that I was never worried about losing or messing up. I was like, hey, I've done the work. I'm good right now. Like, this is, whatever happens, happens. I wasn't confident I was going to win everything, but I was secure with how I'd prepared.
Yeah, you prepared. I think there's also some confidence that we have. Maybe it's naive, where it's just like, oh, I'm not going to put, expectations on a result.
Yeah.
Like, it's, say you're playing a new board game.
Yeah.
You just learned the rules.
Yeah.
Your family's showing it. You're doing it with friends, dinner party, whatever.
Yeah.
And you can go in with that with confidence. It's not like would be expecting. It's like, oh, I have to win.
Yeah.
I have to do this. Like, maybe we do that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is there's also like a little bit of grace of not knowing, of that beginner's mindset of, I've never played this. Let's just see if I can do the best I can.
Yeah.
And I might win.
I really love that idea. And I think I just want to go a little bit deeper on that. Like this, you gave a great example of, playing a board game for the first time. And when we think about board games, like you said, it's such low stakes, right? It's a board game. It's a game made for ages 10 and up, right? Or like whatever. And you said it's the first time. I think that a lot of times we don't give ourselves grace, maybe because of comparison or for whatever reasons, but it's like, hey, you're going through life, your job, your relationships, your, passions. Am I following the right career, industry, et cetera, for the first time? There's no rule book that's set out like, hey, Shane at this moment has to be this far on the board.
Yeah. You have to, we don't need to analyze every single move. Like, you're going to make wrong moves.
Yeah.
It's like, it's your first time. I think that's the point of in life or in more real life settings, when it comes to career, relationships, there are going to be decisions that you have every day.
Yeah.
And we should keep that top of mind of hey, this is the decision I think.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer. I don't know the exact path, but almost just trust that your decision that you'll be able to learn from, or it's going to be the right decision. Yeah. And you were intuitively right. Yeah. So it's I think that's where that, how we remove that paralysis is if we can kind of have that mindset of let's just see how it goes. Yeah.
You also mentioned another great example before about, you gave a great, it's like with your job. What would you do if tomorrow, you just got laid off? And what does that role or thinking almost have to do with worrying less and being better today with your job still?
Yeah. Well, I think that's if we're putting our job or our title or something we're good at as our identity. Yeah. If hey, I'm the smart guy that does this. Yeah. There's a new software comes in and takes away that job. Yeah. That's
very
a real
possible.
Thing, real possible thing. Or it's you're a excellent soccer player. You get a concussion tomorrow.
It's over.
Then you're, it's you get a life and, a situation that ends the thing that you're identifying with as the soccer player or as this thing in business or this relationship. Things happen. Yeah. People die, things change, things end. Yeah. So I think it's more I don't mean to be so dark on that. I think it's more of hey, I'm adaptable. Yeah. I am not those titles, those things I don't identify with. I'm someone that can evolve, can adapt, have things that are a little more deeper instead of that title you give yourself or the you're as valuable as the relationships you have or how much you have in your bank account, etc. Yeah. That's not who you are.
Yeah. I love the idea that you said, I am adaptable, I am flexible. I think that a lot of times, we talked about this last week in the decision-making episode, we can be motivated by fear of, man, I need this job. I need to keep this job, or, anxiety, or I need to stay in this relationship because that's one good thing I have going for me, or you name it, right?
Sure.
And the minute that we begin to do that, we kind of are holding on so closely to losing those identity pieces that we've identified ourselves with. This is who I am within my friend group or my relationships or in my job. When in reality, if we can kind of flip that switch or that thinking of, hey, I am flexible, I'm adaptable.
Yeah, I am verbs. Like,
Yeah.
I be, like, I play, I have fun, like, I'm smart. I'm, all these, like, things that you can put line throughs in your life, in your work, in your play, in your relationships. Those things are who you are, instead of it being the very specific title. This is who I am. I am that relationship.
Yeah.
You're not that.
And the thing is, like you said, those verbs and identifying, those character traits and, how you carry yourself, those are always adaptable to other things. You could take, if you were an accountant, but you don't want to be an accountant anymore and you want to be, a sofa salesman, but you identify as, hey, I am a charismatic, personable, individual, that can be applied anywhere.
Yeah. And this is really, like, by having this mindset, it will help you worry less.
Yeah.
And if you're not, it's just going to be, when things change, as they will change, you're going to be so stressed about this change, about things ending, about things beginning.
Yeah.
It's more like, I think that's the thing that we'll have to practice.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying change will be easy. It won't be easy. I think change is always difficult.
Yeah.
But, like, that's where a space at least I can grow in, is if I can understand that.
Yeah, and I think one thing, like you were saying, is, it's either, you mentioned the end, but also the beginning. If it's a job, like, you got to hold on to a relationship. But then the opposite way of, if you're looking for the one, you don't even want to get in the dating pool if you're so afraid that you'll mess it up from the beginning.
You have criteria, or, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think that it's funny, like, around that thing, because I feel like there are friends who kind of have a little bit more of this mastered earlier, maybe, or different times in their lives, where a lot of advice is, hey, the more you try, the less it's going to come. And that could be jobs, relationships, etc.
Yeah.
But a lot of the reason that they're feeling that way is probably because they're loose. They're like, hey, if tomorrow I, got broken up with, or I got, lost my job, etc. They're like, hey, I'm adaptable. I am flexible. And so the minute that we can kind of begin to turn that mindset around, it takes away that fear, that worry of, I need this thing because I identify as that.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. So maybe what specific hows can we give for ourselves and our listeners to maybe worry less in multiple settings of our lives?
Yeah. I think that it goes all the way back. And I kind of love this because we've been doing this for 2 years now. So I like relating things back to
similar messages.
Yeah. Older themes. And one of our first 10 episodes had to be like maybe episode 3 or 4 about identity. And you mentioned that right off the bat today is, how can we begin to first analyze, okay, who am I? What are some things that I do that can, like, if it's my job, it's like, hey, I could lose that, but I'm still okay.
Yeah. It's going to be hard to, like, see where there's going to be some clearly that you identify with, but there's also going to be, like, some things that you link to your sense of self, like your insecurities, so it's like, I think it's more of like, as you go through your days, like your life, you'll, like, there's going to be like feelings that come up. It's like, try and understand, like, why do I feel this way? It's like, oh, it's because I associate this with this.
Yeah.
And a clear example is, like, for me was when I couldn't play soccer anymore. It's like all I knew was like soccer. So it's like that was something I identified with, and I didn't cope with it in the best way after. So it's like, it's more of like take these like pain moments and use that kind of as markers of like identifying where this is coming from. And if so, are you putting your identity into that?
Yeah, completely. So kind of identifying throughout your day, what are the places that you feel, this sense of self, and, what are the, where are you feeling the most like?
Yeah, it's like, I think using insecurities as identifiers. And it could also be like things that make you mad.
Yeah.
It's like, why does that make you mad? I think when those pop up, those are great lessons right there.
Yeah, completely. And then I think it kind of begins. So a lot of times, like the last step is action, and the first step is kind of this reflection of, sense of self, identity. Maybe number 2 is this ability to kind of convert what we were talking about earlier from nouns or set things like jobs, relationships, etc., to the verbs that, are like, okay,
that
these
make up
are
you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's like if you're doing like you are doing multiple things, like you are so many things throughout your day. And it's something that you have to kind of realize that I am not just this thing. I am not just this relationship. Like I'm my own observer of these things. So, if our first step was kind of identifying these feelings or emotions that pop up into our day, and then the second one is to remove some of those identities. Yeah. Or at least think about those identities that we're associating with. I think the third is give yourself the ability to create new verbs. To like, if you want to be a podcaster, like you have to podcast. If you want to run, like you have to run. Like if you want to work at this thing, or it's like be the verbs that you want to be. Yeah.
And I think that the action that comes from those verbs of doing these different things allows you to understand that you are changeable, adaptable, flexible. You're on the move, right? And you're not so gripping or worrying about losing being a soccer player. It's like, I like playing soccer, but I also like doing other things.
Yeah, you're multifaceted.
Yeah. And that can be so scary to lose if we don't realize that fact, that we are multifaceted. Yeah. So why are we talking about this today?
Yeah, I think this was just an interesting topic for me. I've just been, over the past few months, like been in worried states, but also carefree states, and I was just like noticed myself being better in, in different areas. So I think that it is important to care about things. I didn't want that to be the message, but I think it's more of like, where is it worth caring? Where is it not worth caring? And that's the question I am asking myself. So I think this was helpful for me to worry less.
Yeah, I think that for me, a lot of it came from as maturing, and different conversations happened over the past year or two, whether it's my job or relationships and things like that. Things have become much, much heavier, and decisions felt like they became much bigger in changing the trajectory of things. Yep. And that was scary for me, and something that I feared and worried about a lot, and something that I did not worry about as a kid. And when I say kid, like a college student or anything like that. And there is a healthy balance between, hey, yes, I understand, like you said, I do care about other individuals, about the company I work for, etc. But I am not going to be at my best if I am always thinking in the back of my head, okay, what if this goes wrong? Am I doing the right thing? Am I being the best employee I can be, the best boyfriend, etc.? It's like, hey, you need to trust that those verbs are you. You can change, you can adapt, and no one identity defines, who you are.
Exactly. I love that.
Yeah.
So today we talked, our topic was on worry less. Really this idea came from us in different, learning moments we've had over the past year. It was more recently too, of just being able to understand that there are times or periods that you're quote unquote in flow or in confident or just very confident. And we just explored topics around when you are worrying less, you are able to be in those states a lot easier.
Yeah. No, we did for sure. And then we talked a little bit about in the hows, first about identifying when throughout our daily lives we can kind of notice the triggers or the warning signs when we feel anxious or we feel like
angry, upset. Like, I think when those pop up, those are markers to, okay, why? Ask yourself why.
Why do I care?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then let's start identifying, am I associating myself with this? Am I ingraining this within myself?
Yeah.
And once we identify that, we can start creating a new sense of self, of being more flexible.
Yeah.
Of you are more verbs, you are multifaceted, you aren't just your job, you aren't just this relationship, you are outside of that.
Yeah, completely. And then finally, it's doing the action of those verbs you've kind of identified for yourself, and putting those into practice so that hey, like when things do come up or you do worry or you get anxious, it's like, hey, I can do so many different things and I'm so good. I'm learning, I'm adaptable, and that allows you to kind of worry less about those stressful moments when decisions, do come up in your life.
100%. Then we got into our whys. Why it was important for me is it's just something that I want to practice.
Yeah.
I do want to care, but I want to know what I should care and not care about.
Yeah.
I want to live in that state of flow with confidence. And I think by worrying less or asking myself these questions to understand me will help me do that.
Yeah, that's very good. I think for myself, it's kind of slowing down a little bit and recognizing that maybe some of the big decisions that, I feel like I've had to make in the past couple of years do not define where I'm heading or what the future looks like. And letting go a little bit of the, caring or the worrying can help me be better in my daily life, knowing that on the other side of this, things are going to be okay.
Totally, man.
Yeah.
I think that wraps another week of
What is Humans?
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.